Parampariyaya Vedmahe Jnanalingeshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Guruhu Prachodayate Om. Om Yoga Maharshi Dr. Swami Gitananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Namaskaram, Swagatam, Vanakkam. We are back for another scintillating Saturday morning. A very beautiful morning. The last few days we have had some very beautiful sunrises. In fact, yesterday when I got up in the morning, I saw one of the most amazing sunrises I have seen in 15 years at least. And I'm a person who sees a lot of sunrises. It was an amazing sunrise. In fact, I woke Divya up for the Aarti in the morning and we looked out the window and we saw this beautiful sunrise. The whole sky was so beautifully red. And then this beautiful ball starts to come up over the horizon. That crescent shape and then slowly expanding and finally that beautiful red, bright red, orangish red sun. Aruna Surya. That form of the Surya, that beautiful form of the Surya that is so reddish, Aruna, and the rising of the sun, Udaya. Udayam means to rise, Udaya. Whenever you find the sound ut, ud, usually it means to rise and to arise. So this type of Surya, Udaya, Surya plus Udaya, A plus U becomes O. Remember our basic Sanskrit grammar? A plus U becomes O. That is why A, U, M becomes Om. A plus U plus M. A, O, M. That A plus U comes together, it becomes Om. People say, what's the difference? Om is when you separate it. When you understand the three components of the pranava. Om. And when you bring it all together in one. Om. The A plus U has become O. The same rule of Sandhi, the grammar rule of Sanskrit applies here. Surya, the sun, Udaya, to rise, becomes Suryodaya. Surya, Udaya becomes Suryodayam. Suryodayam is how the sun rises in the morning. When it is the Aruna, it is said Arunodayam. Aruna, Udaya becomes Arunodayam, Suryodayam, Arunodayam. And it was so apt because just a few days back, my dearest guardian, appointed by Swamiji and Ammaji in the 80s, Yoga Ratna, Arunanathagiri had passed on in South America. And I was been thinking about him the last few days a lot. Someone who was so dedicated to these teachings and enabled Swamiji to come back from his back accident and get back to walking and moving around. And all those beautiful videos we have of Swamiji, the archival footage is thanks to Yoga Shri Arunanathagiri. And when I saw that sun yesterday, I was thinking, Aruna has surely become one with the cosmos. And I'm getting that beautiful message from the sun. Arunodayam. Very inspiring when you see the sun come up every day. The sun reminds us, even in darkness, remember, there will be another day for you to arise, awake, and be the best you that you can be. Every day we are reminded by the sun, do not stop doing what you are to do. Do what you are to do, because that is the way you will be what you are to be. When you follow your dharma, you are doing what you are to do. And in that moment, when you follow your dharma, you manifest it. That is the highest swadharma. We have been having a very beautiful time with our yogic psychic neurology teachings. And these are teachings which to me are the pinnacle of yoga, because they enable you to understand the pieces of the universe and how everything is a huge jigsaw puzzle that you have to put together. And those beautiful eureka moments when they all start to come together, making sense where we thought there is no sense. Such a beautiful expression we have been having, and along with that, Team 52 of the yoga step by step, all such sincere, dedicated practitioners. It's amazing to see the dedication manifesting through them. And hence today I thought I will focus on something that in the first few lessons of the yoga step by step, Swamiji has dealt with so strongly. And that is related to our breathing. Because as Swamiji tells us, life starts with the breath of life. The breath of life, the first breath of life is where life starts. So where should yoga start? With the breath. And when we talk about the breathing and the concept of pranayama, which is where the mind is channelizing, the higher mind, the intuitive mind is channelizing the flow of prana as it should flow. The mind is channelizing the prana to flow as it should, rather than the prana being dissipated by automatic, subconscious breathing that is the normal for most people. You want to create a new normal. The new normal should be the cortical, mindful breathing rather than the brainstem-based, survival instinctive behavior. Instinctive breathing is back here. Intuitive breathing is up here. You want to shift your whole pattern from instinctive breathing to intuitive breathing. And the intuitive breathing is where pranayama occurs. Instinctive breathing is not pranayama. Instinctive breathing driven by the brainstem is not pranayama. Intuitive breathing governed by the prefrontal cortex, the higher cortical structures of your brain, and the mindfulness that you channelize through that hardware. The mind is the software, the brain is the hardware. The mindfulness you are channelizing is what makes it pranayama and not just breathing exercises. And if I ever catch any of you describing pranayama as breathing exercises, gangster yogi will come straight to you and punch you in your nose. Pranayama is intuitiveness, not instinctiveness. The instinctive behaviors are primitive behaviors. And yoga is to transform ourselves from being an instinctive to an intuitive, responsive being. Moving from instinctive, reactionary, spinal jerk mentality, my father would call it. Spinal jerks, that's what most people are. Spinal jerks. Spinal cord mentality is how we used to abuse people. We are moving from an instinctive, reactionary, spinal cord mentality to an intuitive, reflexive. This is reflexive, reflective. You are moving from reflexive, reactionary to responsive and reflective. You are capable of self-reflection. One of the most important qualities of being a yogi is the capacity for self-questioning. Can you ask yourself those difficult questions? Can you interrogate yourself by going internally? Can you ask yourself that question and go into that self-reflective mindfulness? It is at that point that instinctive breathing, brainstem based, it transforms into intuitive, responsive pranayama. And the base of this is healthy breathing. So when you want to breathe in a healthy manner, you need to breathe slow and deep. It has to be dirgha. When it is dirgha, you are going to breathe deep, and when you breathe deeply, hidden receptors in your lungs, J receptors, J as in the alphabet. The J receptors are in your lungs. They are only brought into play when you breathe deeply. Shallow breathing does not recruit these J receptors. Slow, deep breathing is energy efficient. It is economical. And it is the way for you to maximize your potential. Our lungs are not just on the front of the body like a t-shirt with an Om on it. People think the lungs are just on the front of the body. Your lungs are three-dimensional structures. Three-dimensional structures that are in the front, side and back. Then they have a lower part and an upper part and a middle part in between, and an inner part also that is surrounding the heart. So every time you breathe in, your heart is getting a massage. When you breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Your heart is getting a beautiful massage from the lungs every time you breathe deeply, giving a self-massage to your heart. What a beautiful aspect that you are massaging your own heart, giving yourself a nice hug. You are giving your heart a hug every time you breathe deeply. When you breathe shallow, you are just in survival mode. You want to shift from survival mode, which is the default mode for most people, featherless, flat-nailed, thick-skulled bipeds. You want to shift from that survival default mode to a default mode which is a conscious, aware, mindful, self-reflective, responsive mode of living as a human being. When you want to do that, how do you do it? By changing the way you breathe. When you change the way you breathe, you change the way you think. When you change the way you think, you change the way you perceive the world around you. When you change the way you perceive the world around you also changes. Because the world around us is made up of what we perceive about it. And that is why when we transcend our perception of the world, we can get out of this circus, while all the cartoon characters can still stay in it, having fun with all the fights and battles that they go on with, like Don Quixote and his windmills. The lower part of your lungs is the base, supported on the diaphragm. The diaphragm is the most important muscle of respiration. No diaphragm, no respiration, you are on a ventilator. So just remember that much. No diaphragm, you are on ventilator. Your diaphragm is working, no need ventilator. Basically, that is the bottom line. The diaphragm, this huge muscle, is dividing your thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity. It lies in between like the dome. It's a dome-shaped diaphragm, dividing the lower, that is the abdominopelvic region, and the upper, here in this case, the thoracic cavity, housing the lungs and the heart. When you breathe in, the reason you breathe in is because the brainstem is sending a message to the diaphragm saying, go down. And so the diaphragm starts to go down. As the diaphragm starts to go down, it contracts actually. When it contracts, because it is not attached to any muscle, any bone, it is, what it has to do is that it has to go down. On the outside it's attached, in the center it is not attached to any bone. Unlike these muscles that are attached to a bone here and here, or here and here. Because it is only attached on the outside, not the inside, when it contracts, it goes down. The dome-shaped diaphragm goes down. When it goes down, the lower part of your lungs, which are attached to the diaphragm by the pleura. The pleura is your plastic covering over your lungs. Your lungs, all your internal organs are packed. They are well packed like a supermarket. Packs all, your food stuff. The plastic cellophane, your pleura is your natural plastic cellophane that is packing all your organs. So the pleura that is covering the lungs and the pleura covering the diaphragm, what happens is that they are attached. So when the diaphragm goes down, the lower part of the lungs has no choice but to go down. So automatically the lower part of the lungs is taken down. The next part is you have your intercostal muscles. These are muscles that lie between the rib cage. So you have your ribs, 12 pairs of ribs, and men and women have the same number. Don't believe anybody that someone came out of somebody's rib. Both have the same number of ribs. Now what happens is these ribs, in between you have muscles that are running like this. So one group of muscles is running like this, the other group is muscle. And so you have this meshwork of internal and external intercostal muscles here. And what happens is these muscles, they start to pull, and when those muscles contract, this happens. So diaphragm going down has done this, the intercostal muscles pulling has done this, and then you have the sternocleidomastoid and other muscles up here, the accessory muscles. Normally only brought into play when people cannot breathe. When they are struggling with breathing, you'll see these come into play. Normally they don't come into play, they shouldn't come into play. But what we do is consciously we are going to work into this area. And what we do is that we work on how these muscles pull up. So this diaphragm goes down, intercostals pull out, accessory helps it to go up, and your whole volume has increased. Superior, inferior diameter, antero-posterior diameter, the lateral, all 360 degrees, your thoracic cavity, the thoracic cavity, because of the muscular movement, has enhanced. Automatically, the lungs have to follow with this whole thing. And as the lungs follow this, the volume has gone up, pressure goes down, air rushes in. So when we say breathe in, we think that's all we were doing. But your diaphragm had to go down, your intercostals had to go up, the accessory muscles had to pull up, and that is the way the space was created for the air to come in. When you breathe out, it's all elastic recoil and it goes out. So the lower part of the lungs, those areas are called the Adama. Adama means the base, the foundation. The middle part of the lungs are called Madhyama. The middle part are Madhyama, the middle. And the upper part are called the Adi. So Adhyama, Adama, Madhyama, Adhyama, the three parts of your lungs. And each of these, Adama, Madhyama and Adhyama, are having subsections, which are the front, the side and the back. So the lower part of your lungs, the inferior part of your lungs, the inferior lobe, inferior sort of lower and inferior sounds, as if it's something lower. No, it is just the foundation, it's the base. So the base of your lungs. The base of your lungs, you have the front, side and back on the right, front, side and back on the left. Similarly, the middle region, front, side and back, front, side and back. And the upper, front, side and back, front, side and back. This is the apex, the apical regions, the apex of the lungs, the apical. So you have the basal, the middle and the apical. The low, mid and upper part, which are in yoga called Adama, Madhyama, Adhyama. And remember, you have 9 minor sections. So in the Gitananda teachings, a part is called Bhaga. Bhaga means a part. Now, low, mid, high, those are Bhaga. Adama, Madhyama, Adhyama are Bhaga. But each of these Bhaga has a Vibhaga. V is a superlative that says there is a minor section there, subsection. So you have a front lower, side lower, back lower. Front middle, side middle, back middle. Front upper, side upper, back upper. So 9 subsections which are the Vibhaga. 9 and 9, 18. These are the equivalent to the modern medical concept of bronchopulmonary segments. And bronchopulmonary segments, there are 10 in each lung, are very similar. They go very, very similar to this yogic concept of 9 sections, or rather subsections of each lung. And these bronchopulmonary segments are based on an air supply, the arterial blood supply, the venous blood drainage, lymphatic supply, and neuronal nerve supply. So air supply, blood supply, and nerve supply. Blood supply is arterial, venous, and lymphatic. And each of these sections has its own. Each of these subsections has its own air supply, blood supply, and nerve supply. It is like an autonomous district in a state. So the districts are your subsections, your Vibhaga. The Bhaga are the states, and then the whole country, the Desha, is your whole lung. And the continent is the 2 lungs put together. Okay? District, state, country, continent, if you want to put it that way. When we want to breathe, we are using the Spasha Mudra. So when I place my hands at the front here, my mind is anchored into the front of the lower lung. When I place my hands here, my mind is anchored into the side of the lower lung. When I place my hands behind me, now my mind is anchored. My mind is anchored in the posterior, the back region of the lower lung. Similarly, the Spasha Mudra on the front of the middle, side of the middle, back of the middle, front of the upper. Now the side of the upper, we put the hands down here in the hip, because this is a sensitive region because of the axilla, all the blood supplies, the lymphatics, the nerves, you don't want to compress it. So you place your hands down here. Embryologically, these 2 areas have primordial connection embryologically. So when you place it here, you can easily let your mind flow here. And then taking your hands behind you so that you feel the back upper region of the upper lobes. Okay, the back upper lobes. So you have these Spasha Mudra, the touching gestures. In addition to this, when you want to breathe, now one more thing I would like to just say here is, say I was doing Madhyam Pranayama, the middle chest breathing. When I'm doing this, keeping my hands together, and last week when we were doing this in the yoga step by step, Devasena reminded us that Renuka Giri, Yogacharini Renuka Giri, who was one of Swamiji's most dedicated, determined students, and my own dear sister who taught me the love of mathematics, Renukaka, she used to point out that when you are doing this, your thumbs should be aligned with your palms. So it is like this when you are doing. It is not like this. Because what she used to point out, and Devasena pointed it out in last week, it is a very important point, that when you place your hands like this, you are focusing on the lower lung. But now if I do this, what is happening? My thumbs are on the middle lung. And my own neuronal circuits get confused. Ananda, do you want to breathe into low or into mid? Please tell us clearly. Your message is garbled. Mudras are intrapersonal messages. And you are garbling up the message. So, keeping the thumb aligned with the finger. All the fingers should be aligned together. Then, you are focusing on the low, Adama, Madhyama, and Adhyama. A very important thing, because we have a tendency to do this. If I am doing this in middle chest with this, my thumbs are working on the upper chest. And so, you have to be very clear when you are doing these reflexogenic messages. These are reflexogenic. Now someone asked me, what is the difference between reflex and reflexogenic? A reflex is when there is a stimulus and a response. So a knee-jerk reflex, I tap my patellar tendon and the movement, patellar tendon, okay, patellar tendon, tap, knee-jerk reflex. This is the knee-jerk reflex, okay? You tap, so there is a sensory input and a motor output. That is a reflex. Reflexogenic means the genesis of this communication is in the reflex arc, but there is only a sensory input, there is no motor output. And that is why in your, sorry for my dirty feet, but if you look at your feet, there are different areas here. Your whole spine is along this. This is where your head and neck is. And this base of your toes, the base of the toes is where you are working with cranial nerves. That is why when you do the Vajra Virasana, you remember the Vajra Vira? And when you sit on your toes like this, okay, you bring your toes under and you sit on your toes. This is a practice that decalcifies your cranial nerves. It unblocks all the mala in the cranial nerves so that the cranial nerves can function properly. And one of the important cranial nerves is the vagus, which plays such an important role in all yoga activity. So when I compress these areas, same thing with your hands. Your hand has the whole spine, it has the digestive regions and all. Now when I press here, what is happening is I am setting up an impulse into that respective part of the body so that the energy can flow into that body part in a harmonious, healthy manner. It is using the reflex pathway, but you are not inducing a motor response. If you have a motor response, it is just a reflex. It is not reflexogenic. So if you have a motor response, it is a reflex. Stimulus, response, reflex. Stimulus, effect, but no motor response. That is reflexogenic. And we are using a lot of these. So mudras are often reflexogenic. In the yoga step by step, the first few lessons work extensively on the seated posture from Vajrasana and its variations. And as Sangeeta told us in one of the sessions, it's the best egodectomy because you think you're so evolved and he puts you straight, Swamiji puts you straight into asanas that are so really ego-deflating. Ego-deflating postures, the Vajrasana variations. When you do this, you are creating reflexogenic effects and different brain parts are being worked on. Now, when we are doing this, we are using the Spasha Mudra as a means to focus the mind, anchor the mind to certain body regions. When I do this, automatically it is easier for my mind to focus on the side of the lower lobe. Here, focusing on the side of the middle lobe. The mind can do it because now it just has to follow the hands. As said in dance, Yato hastas tato drishti, yato drishti tato manaha. Your mind just has to follow the hands, that's all. And it can anchor easily. Where the mind goes, the energy flows. Yato mana tata prana. Now there's another way this can be done, and that is by using the hasta mudras that are the chin mudra. Okay, we have had a full session on that. Individual, universal. Individual, universal. And you bring the individual and universal together, and all aspects of manifestation, you bring them in harmony together. Disciplined harmony. Yoga is discipline. Ata yoga anushasanam. Anushasanam. Yoga is an anushasanam. It is a disciplined way of life. Disciplined way of living. You are disciplining all aspects. The tamo guna, rajo guna, sattva guna, vata pitta kapha. the gross, subtle and causal, stula, sukshma, karana, all the states, jagrat, swapna, sushupti, the past, present and future of time, everything you are disciplining in a very disciplined way with the senses under control. And you are just showing your intent, chin mudra. When you place the chin mudra on the upper inner aspect of the thighs, now we always use the Vajrasana when we start off Pranayama in the Gitananda tradition. And the reason is that your spine will be erect. It is much, much easier to sit erect in Vajrasana and very difficult to slouch. The diaphragm has the maximum capacity to have an exchange with the abdomen. It can go down and up much more easily because you have decompressed your abdomen when you sit in Vajrasana. Which is why Vajrasana is the only asana you can do after food, and actually you should do after food to have healthy digestion, because you decompress the whole abdominal region, letting the blood flow harmoniously into this region. When we place the chin mudra down onto the inner aspect of the thigh, not here, we place it here, what we are doing is that the energy flow from the upper part of the spine, the cervical energy flow that is coming into the brachial plexus, and the lower part of the spine, which is the lumbosacral nerve plexus coming into the lower part of the body, you are creating a closed circuit of energy between the upper and lower part of your own spinal cord energy flow. Now, this doesn't happen here because this is where those nerves are coming out. The nerves coming out here in the hand, nerves coming out here, upper inner aspect of the thighs. When I place my chin mudra here, I have created a beautiful closed circuit for energy between the upper and lower part of my own spinal cord. In addition to that, what I am doing is that I am gesturing, I am communicating to my brainstem. In the brainstem, different parts of the brainstem work on the low, mid and upper part of your breathing. And there will be neurons which are the Adama neurons, the Madhyama neurons and the Adhyama neurons. So those neurons that are working on the lower part, when you do the chin mudra, you are telling them, hey, please get up, it's time to breathe a bit. Let's do some mindful breathing, you guys. All you buffaloes, stop making noise and start waking up and stop sleeping and come out of your tamasika guna and become rajasika and then work towards sattvika. That is what you are saying when you do this. Chin mudra, the gesture of consciousness. You are bringing consciousness into that foundational aspect, the basal aspect of your lungs, and the breathing into the Adama. Adam Pranayama. Adama is when you are focusing on that. Similarly, when you curl your fingers in, you come into the Chin Maya Mudra. Maya means to bind. You are binding that consciousness now, and when you place it on the upper inner aspect of your thighs, a message is sent to the Madhyama neurons, the Madhyama area of your brainstem, the Aprakasha Bindu, and you are saying, I want to primarily breathe into the middle part of my lungs, the Madhyam Pranayama, and when you breathe in, and then you breathe out. You are breathing into your middle part automatically. And then you say, I want to breathe into the upper part, the Adhyama, Adhyam Pranayama. Place the thumb inside, the Adi. The source is always hidden by the rest. The source is hidden, the Adi. Place it down on the upper inner aspect of the thighs. And now those parts of your brainstem, the Aprakasha Bindu related to the Adhyama, the upper chest breathing, the apical region breathing, they are becoming active, and when you breathe, you're breathing there. You are gesturing the way you want to breathe. When I do the chin mudra, into the lower part, Chin Maya Mudra. The middle part, Aadhi Mudra, upper part. the mudra along with your mind focus into that region. It is important that the communication being made by your gesture should be followed by the mind. If you are doing the chin mudra and thinking what is for breakfast or what is for dinner, there's no chin, there's no chit happening, no consciousness happening. It is only food happening and vitarka, a deviant thought arising and emotion arising in you. When you do chin mudra and focus on this lower part, you breathe. Breathing in to the front, side and the back. Breathing out, back, side, front. Let's perform the chin mudra, okay? Just breathe out. Breathing in to the front, side and back. Breathing out, back, side and front. Breathing in, front, side, back. Breathing out, back, side, front. Breathing in, front, side, back. Breathing out, back, side, front. Hopefully you have been doing it with me and you will enjoy that beautiful feeling as the mind is guiding. The mind is guiding through the communication of the mudra, the flow of the breath, and hence the flow of the life force, the prana, into primarily the low, the front, side and back. Becoming aware of this flow as the opening occurs and as the closing of the chest occurs. The opening and the closing. People often say, people get very confused because in the Gitananda tradition, low, mid, high, low, mid, high. But when we breathe, it is front, side, back, back, side, front. And people say, why is it not front, side, back, front, side, back? I say it's not anatomically possible, not physiologically possible, because the back of your rib cage is attached to your spine like this. The front of the rib cage is the movement part. Okay? Imagine this is your rib cage. This is easier. This is the back of the ribs attached to your spine. So your ribs are like this. So when you breathe in, it is front, side, back. When you breathe out, it has to be back, then side, and then the front. Front, side, back, back, side, front. Front, side, back, back, side, front. So it's this expansion and then coming back. So when you expand, you have to first expand here, then expand here, then expand here. Then the coming back is first in the back, then the side, and then the front. This is the way this occurs. Let's do the Madhyam Pranayama now. Okay, the Madhyam Pranayama now. Okay, so front, side, back, back, side, front. Ready? I'll just do this Spasha, but you can do the Chin, Maya. Chin, Maya, Mudra, upper inner aspect of the thighs. Okay, ready? Breathing out into the middle part of the lungs. Front, side, back. Breathing out, back, side, front. Breathing in, front, side, back. Breathing out, back, side, front. Breathing in, front, side, back. Breathing out, back, side, front. So I hope you have been doing it with me and getting this feeling of how your mind is focusing into these areas, so there is consciousness flowing from the cortical part of you, the neocortex, the power of choice, the superpower of being human. And the mudra is moving with it. So the mudra, the mind flow, the breath flow, they're all moving together. And what is that? Yoga. When everything comes together, it is yoga. Yujjate anena iti yogaha. When all the component parts come together, it is yoga. The harmonious coexistence, the harmonious integration, the communion, the reunion is what yoga is about. Let's now work on the upper part of the lungs, Adhyama, Pranayama, and we are going to use the Aadhi Mudra. Remember the thumb, the big boss, is put inside and hidden from everything. and place down. Aadhi Mudra tells you that the source is often hidden. You have to look a bit deeper. It's not going to have a neon signboard saying, I am the boss. And if someone has that neon sign, they are not the boss. Anyone who has to say they are enlightened is not enlightened. Anyone who has to say they are a guru is not a guru. Anyone who has to say they are the boss are not a boss. All of that is deluded thinking. Let's come into clarity of thinking, not delusion. Breathing out, focusing on the upper part of the lungs as you breathe in to the front, side, and the back. Breathing out, back, side, and front. Breathing in, front, side, back. Breathing out, back, side, front. Breathing in, front, side, back. Breathing out, back, side, back. Beautiful. Setting up such a beautiful highway of communication, a highway of consciousness, communicating with our own self. Who is a better person to communicate with than your own being, right? We always want to communicate with others. We need to communicate with ourselves. Someone asked me the other day about what is a Sanskrit term for negative self-talk, self-depreciation and negative self-talk. Well, the Bhagavad Gita tells us you should lift the self by the self and not be self-depreciating. And Lord Krishna tells us, Uddhared Atma Atmanam Natmanam Avasadayet. He uses the word Avasadayet there. But then I looked at it from another perspective. Swabhiman, Swa-abhiman is when you have positive self-esteem that leads you to communicating with yourself in a very healthy interpersonal, intrapersonal manner. And then there is something which is the opposite, which is called Hina Bhavana. Hina Bhavana, H-E-E-N-A. Hina Bhavana is an attitude of negativity towards your own self. I am not good enough. I am no use. Everybody is better than me. I have no talent. Nobody respects me. All of this is negative self-talk, which is Hina Bhavana, as opposed to Swabhimana Bhavana. Swa, Abhimana Bhavana. Swa is the self. Abhiman is where you have respect for your own self, and hence there is a positivity that is blossoming from within you. Swabhimana Bhavana is an attitude of self-respecting, which doesn't mean ego. What it means is you respect and so you value. And because you value, you take care of it. Hina Bhavana is where there is negativity, self-depreciation all the time. And yes, Don, thank you for motivating me onto this. Because this is such a beautiful concept in our culture, where you need to understand that you are the best you. And this self-confidence doesn't mean that you think you are better than everybody else. When you think you are better than everybody else, it's ego. Okay? Ego self-talk is ahankara bhavana. And the Bhagavad Gita says you have to go from ahankara bhavana to nirankara bhavana. Go beyond that. Nirankara is the opposite of ahankara. Nir-ahankara is nirankara. But people think, oh, self-confidence means I should compare and say I'm better than others. No. Self-confidence, swabhiman, is when you realize you don't have to compare with anybody at all. You are you. And that is where you start to understand the self. Swa-abhiman comes. Not when you say, I am better than that, I am better. Or, you keep on telling yourself this positive self-thought. I am the best, I am the best, I am the best. No, you are just feeding the ego, that's all. You don't have to compare with anybody else. Why are you comparing with anybody? You are a unique species. You are a unique specimen of that unitive consciousness. You are a unique specimen of the unitive consciousness. There is no second you. There's only you. Where is the comparison? Because comparison is the thief of happiness. The moment you start comparing, gone. You have thrown yourself into the deep well. You are not to compare yourself with anybody else. You are you, that's all. The only comparison, if you have to do, is you with yourself, that's all. Am I moving towards becoming the best version of myself? That is okay. That is part of Swadhyaya. Swa-adhyaya. Adhyaya means a chapter. You are starting to understand the chapter that is you. The book that is you. The Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica, that is you with 24 volumes. You are starting to read it. You are starting to understand it. So when we are using these mudras, Chin Mudra, the gesture of consciousness, Chinmaya Mudra, the gesture where you have bound that consciousness or binding yourself into consciousness, and Aadhi Mudra, which is communicating with the highest level of pure consciousness. You are working on the low, mid and upper parts of your lungs. Low, mid and upper part of your lungs, they supply the low, mid and upper part of the body. So when you want health in the lower part of the body, the low chest breathing, Adama Pranayama, is very useful therapeutically. When you want to work on the thoracic region and the upper limbs, a very good way to work on it is through the Madhyama Pranayama, the middle chest breathing. And when you want to work on the head and neck region, Adhyama Pranayama, which is the upper chest breathing, energizes that. So for the lower part of the body, Adama, Madhyama for the middle part of the body, Adhyama for the upper part of the body. When you work on the Adam Pranayama, you are working on the lowest of the three bodies. We are three embodied. We are three embodied, triembodied. Sounds a bit Sanskrit there, like Triambakam. Triembodied. It's called Tri Sharira, triembodied. Three embodied. You have the gross body, the subtle body, and the causal body. When you are working with Adama Pranayama, you are creating a beautiful sense of awareness in the basal, the gross body, the Sthula Sharira. When you work in the Madhyama, you are starting to work with the Sukshma Sharira through that beautiful flow of prana. And when we come into the upper chest region, the Adhyama Pranayama, we are working with the head and neck, energizing the flow into the hardware of the brain that connects to the software of mind and enables us to go into that causal state of existence. That is why the journey back home is you're going back home. So Om is the journey back home, sweet Om. Mua is when we are manifesting. M-U-A. Mua. You find people telling each other, Mua. That is why someone had a nice cartoon of cows in the meadow with the monks chanting Om, Om. And the cow says, I think they got it backwards. It should be Mo, Mo, Mo. So the Mo part is the manifesting part. Om is the de-manifestation, going back to the source. When we work with this, we are working with the lower, middle and upper parts of the lungs, lower, middle and upper parts of the body, the lower, middle and upper parts of your existence, Sthula, Sukshma and Karana, and something more. The lower part of the brain, the reptilian complex, is the Adama. The limbic system, the mammalian part, is the Madhyama. And such a beautiful aspect. The whole cortex, the neocortex, which is the human part of us, is when you are breathing very consciously into the upper part of the lungs. You are working towards that. So when we are working with these three, we are working with the old part of the nervous system, that is the reptilian complex, the mammalian complex, and the human complex. And next week, in our Scintillating Saturdays, We'll bring these three together, the low, mid, and the upper part, in Mahat Yoga Pranayama, which is a foundational aspect of Pranayama in the Gitananda tradition. On Monday, we are celebrating Vijaya Dasami, the 10th day where the Mother Goddess destroys the ignorant, inert darkness. And it is a day of Vidya Arambam, and students meet the teachers and have a lesson. So this year, as we are all physically distancing, we are in the physical distancing mode, but online communion mode. So I thought about it and I said, for Vijaya Dasami, we will have a beautiful satsanga with my dear Rishi Culture Yoga family from all over the world in the Zoom womb. The Zoom Gurukula is where we will meet. 4:30 p.m. Indian time, 4:30 to 6. I have sent out the link to most of you. If you have not got it, send me an email and you'll get the link. And if you have the link and you feel there are others who would value and benefit from these teachings, please share it with them if they will value and respect the teachings. And bring your questions into the chat box. And that day I will try my best to share what I can about it. A day where we can all meet together in the process of learning, expanding our consciousness on Vijaya Dasami. So see you all when I see you next. I'll see some of you later this evening in Divya's beautiful Navaratri series, which is truly a Kala Yajna. What a beautiful idea Divya has made of bringing the family together in this cultural ethos of Navaratri. Beautiful talks, beautiful storytelling. We had Tejasvi telling beautiful stories on Durga. We had Devasena telling beautiful stories of Lakshmi. The Ashtalakshmi came alive. And then last night, we had Reena telling us about tales of Saraswati. And such beautiful stories. We have had beautiful singing from Sangeeta. We have had beautiful singing from the Mata Gitananda Ashram, Ma Uma Shakti and her dynamic Shakti that is there. We have had Vidya Shankari singing. Today we'll have Jyoti Priya singing. We have had beautiful Natyam, the Kuchipudi by Swamini Atmananda of the Mata Gitananda Ashram, Italy, my dear younger sister. And it's just been marvelous. And then thanks to Krishna Veni, we have had a chance to go back and see the beauty that was created in that Trishakti dance drama. Being on stage and singing and performing, you get involved in singing for the dancer, and you are involved with where's the light? Is the light come on? Is the mic on? Hey, where's that character? So you don't get that beauty of the performance in that way. You get another beauty, but not that beauty. And so just watching all of these video clippings for me has been a beautiful experience. So I thank Divya for this beautiful idea. She is a very dynamic Shakti, and with all your love and blessings, I hope that she will continue to manifest that divine light that shines through her. And this Navaratri Kala Yajna is truly a Kala Yajna. The global voices were truly global voices, and I'm so happy that Ammaji could see all of our family, so many of the senior members through the global voices before this accident. And even now, every day as we are going live, Shirley is with Amma on the tab, showing her the Navaratri Kala Yajna, so that Amma's also part of it. Thank you everyone for your support. It means a lot. Let's keep doing our best, for that is our dharma, to manifest the best of who we are, what we are. And when we live in our dharma, we mitigate our karma. Dharma is the antidote to karma. Dharma is the vaccine against karma. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Dhanyavadaha. Thank you. Grats.